Came too far to turn back. The return of the lyricist. Get it together.
Yo, what's up? You listen to You Good with Mike Brown, the mental health podcast presented by Loudspeakers Network and myself, Mike Brown. You know what it is. This episode, we have comedian Rick Younger. Man, this is a really dope episode. I mean, I have to give the bio, Rick, but this episode is probably one of my favorite episodes. Rick has been doing comedy for about 20 plus years. He's now, you could see him on Broadway. He is Mr. Duval in Mean Girls, the Tina Fey musical. And man, he's incredible. He's a multifaceted performer and just a dope man. Like, you know, just for me as, you know, a black male comic, there's people who I look up to by the way they move and by the, you know, just their work. And it's just always a pleasure when I can talk to someone I consider as one of the OGs who's put the time in and has this wisdom to impart upon me. Like, I just love that. And especially because I feel like his story kind of resonates with where my story is going, and it's just good to just I don't know, I'm just really lost for words because it was a good episode, man. Like I don't know what to say. And also I'm trying to be better with the intro, so I'm just like pour the heart out in the intro. But yeah, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about obviously black identity. We do talk about comedy coming up in comedy 20 years ago. We talk about anxieties. We go all over the place. Fatherhood. It's just like a really, really good episode. I hope you guys liked. Also, I want to shout out to PVD. I never really shout him out in the intro, but I should shout him out every intro, and I think I'm going to start doing that. He does the music for our podcast. So every time you hear the music, that's from PVD. You can follow him at PVD Music. Make sure to do that. Also, follow Rick Younger at Rick Younger Live. You know, you can follow me at Yo Mike Brown, and also the Twitter at You Good Pod. I would really like it if you guys follow that one. I'm trying to be like more active on it. And if you guys can help share or whatever, if you like it, just like let me know somehow. Or not, don't even like let me know personally. Let the world know. Like you can be like, yo, this is a good episode, and then just tweet me at the end of that tweet. Like, because I'm really trying to get like the word out, but it's weird to even ask for that, but it's like, I don't want everybody to hear the podcast. I just want the people that you want to hear the podcast, if that makes sense. Like, this, I feel, is a super safe space in the sense of, like, the people I talk to and just the vibe of it. And everyone's welcome to listen to the conversation, but I also, like, don't like the whole internet trolley things. So I'm like, I don't want that to happen. But, you know, if you fuck with the podcast, man, tell a friend, or, you know, whatever. But you guys get it. So anyway, thanks for listening. Appreciate all the love and all the listeners. And please remember to subscribe if you haven't. Definitely leave a rating, 5 stars, if you think it's good or whatever you feel. And I was also told that the reviews are what's important now. So whatever you feel about the show, good or bad, please like leave an honest review. Sometimes I do have time, so I will look at the reviews and try to read them and take them into consideration. And also, like, sometimes on my Tuesday mornings, I get in my you goody my vibe, and I'm just like, yeah, this new one's coming out today. Boom, I'm recording one today. Let me see what the streets are saying. Like, I just get hype about it. So if you do love the podcast, leave a review. Leave multiple reviews. Like, I don't care, man. I mean, I do care, but, like, I don't want you. See, I'm just a mess. Anyway, enjoy this conversation with me and Rick Younger, and I hope y'all good. You good? All right. Here, what's up? It's Mike Brown. You listen to You Good with Mike Brown, presented by Mike Brown, with Mike Brown being Mike Brown on Mike Brown. So annoying, right? Now, you listen to You Good, a mental health podcast presented by myself and Loudspeakers Network. this episode got my boy Gordon Baker Bone. That's my brother. It's my friend. He's a comedian from Newark, New Jersey. He is somebody, I mean, we talk about how we met and all that on the podcast, but he's like one of New Jersey's funniest, just one of the funniest people I know. He and I, we've been a part of this group called Decepticomics. It's 5 of us. It's John Minus, Gordon Baker Bone, Dylan Stevenson, Rum Russell, and myself. And basically we banded together because we're like, oh, we're all 5 black male comedians who can play the urban rooms and the mainstream rooms and the alt rooms, and we kind of don't know where we fit, but we all rock with each other, so maybe we should just like start a crew and whatever. And for the past 5 years, we did a bunch of shows together. I think in 2016 or 17, I put together a tour where we did a 4 or 5 week tour. We did a 25 shows or cities or whatever, and it was just like really, really fun, and we talk about that a lot. But with Gordon, he's somebody who's like so funny that it frustrates me why the industry hasn't got really a hold of him yet. And so, you know, we just talk about that a lot, and on the podcast we kind of talked about that and just the anxieties of knowing that you got those bars and you don't know why they're not working out. We also talk about relationships and also being a friend. And I also say this, I don't know how or who's listening to this, whatever, and what their definition of friendship is. I think the term friend is kind of been bastardized like love in a way. And I mean it in this way. There's people that I love, but I love them differently. But if I say the word love and if they feel that love is a certain thing that's not my thing, I'm not communicating with them the right way. And I say this because with friends, people are like, oh, that person's my friend. But it's like, okay, well, if you're going through something, do you call that person? And when you call that person, do they pick up and be there for you? So when I say like Gordon's like my friend, like I care about Gordon. You know what I mean? I might not be like seeing him all the time, whatever, but he knows if he needs an ear, he got one. And that's how I feel I am with all of my friends. And I hope that they would do the same for me. It's like, yo, if you need to push the button. Where we going? Like that's just my kind of DNA. So after you listen to this episode, if you have friends that you're like, yo, that's my friend, that's my homie, and you guys aren't close, or maybe you want to be closer or whatever, you just reach out to them and just say what's up, because I think that's something that's been that people just don't do, and I don't know why we just don't do it. But yeah. So anyway, listen to this episode. It's a great episode. Also, we recorded it in a different studio. So if the vibe of the podcast is different, it's just because we recorded it in a different studio. Yes, it was still at the Loudspeakers Empire, but it was in a different room. Sometimes the different room episodes, they're a little different, but we'll see how it is. Let me know what you guys think. As I always say, rate, review, subscribe. 5 stars if you really like it. 1 star if you don't. Just give me something. Subscribe so you know when other things are coming on. And also reviews, very, very, very important. Please do that. And yeah, just check it out. Also, follow everybody. Follow Gordon at Baker Bone. Follow me at Yo Mike Brown or You Good Pod. Also, shout out to PVD. He does all the music. You hear it in the beginning. You're probably going to hear it a little bit now. Don't know what's going on. But follow him at PVD Music. And thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. You goody mob. Let's get into it. Yeah, it's weird, like, because, like, remember you did our like, we already recorded, but we did the Comedy Outliers podcast. Like, didn't you do Comedy Outliers podcast with me and Brandon?
I never did the podcast.
You never did?
I stopped
Okay.
past the show one time.
Okay, stop by the show. So it's like, there's a lot of podcasts that, like, just like, you started with I got this person here. No. So I always do my intros like when the guest isn't here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's really just like us having a conversation.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
The last one I did was like pretty much like that.
Yeah. Is it?
I did
What was it?
called Call and Response. The host, she works for Playbill. You know, the people.
Oh,
that
yeah,
make
yeah,
all
that do the
programs
Playbill,
for. And so we just started talking, and then when it came out, she put the intro on later. And everything.
Yeah, I think it's just like more. I think that makes like a more honest kind of like podcast or whatever. And it just like, and even like seeing you at the audition, I was like,
Right.
oh yeah, I gotta talk to you.
You're right.
Everybody, it's like, it's weird, man. I ran into Dante Nero
Okay.
that same day.
Okay.
And because he was going in to like audition for like The Wrestler or whatever. So, which was funny. Someone knew you. So, you know.
Typecasting.
Yeah, typecasting, you know. But, you know, it was just like, and then like when we left, we were just kicking it just about like, I guess like the differences in like generations of comedians and the respect and all that shit.
Yeah.
Where it's like, for him, like I look at him, and it's also, I think it just might be like just black shit of like deference. When anyone is like, is older than you and has wisdom,
right,
you should give that person respect unless they do something where you're like, man.
I feel like that is also because you pledged.
Yeah, I think that's part of it
right,
too.
Right, because that's the thing, deference.
Yeah.
When you pledge, fall 89, okay, all right, deference.
All right, cool, you got it.
Right,
Yeah.
And it's like I think that there's a certain, not everyone has it, I guess is what I'm saying. There's a reason why you have it and not everyone does.
Yeah.
I feel that because, I mean, since we're talking about being old, I've been doing stand-up since I was 23. I just turned 50. More than half of my life. But my path through the stand-up world is not the traditional path. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say, I'm independent, but I'm not indie. Indie seems to be that label that they have decided to have, but most of the people who are in it aren't really independent.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I started out trying to get into the clubs.
Yeah.
I didn't do too bad. I got into some nice clubs when I was doing that, like around the mid to late 90s. Excuse me.
Bless. Yeah.
I'm sure you can.
That's that oldness kicking.
What I'll do is whenever I cough like that, I just stop and start again. So so like back in the mid to late 80s, I was not the 80s, the 90s. I was doing, I was in at the Cellar, Boston Comedy Club, which is no longer exists, and I was at Stand Up New York, and then I had to leave New York because of a bad roommate situation. But what I did was I maintained my presence in New York, at least through the eyes of my agents. So like whenever I got called for an audition or whatever, I came up.
Yeah.
If I was totally unable to come up, I would always say to them, I'm working out of town. Yeah. Which was not really a lie because when I wasn't up here, I was like getting on stage.
Yeah. I mean, you were working and you were out of town, so technically it's like.
So
it's like
it wasn't no lie.
Yeah.
But but when I came back, those same places that I was in at was kind of like people. It was like people who I'd spent hours with, were acting like they didn't know me.
That's so weird,
kind of
man.
because they had gotten a few credits.
Yeah.
That, I guess made them feel like, I don't know, maybe they thought I was going to try to ask for something. But they didn't even give me the chance to ask. They just kind of acted funny and made me not want to be near them.
Yes.
And so...
okay, so I know this is something like I feel like I go through. I'm like, am I the only one going through this shit?
So what I did, it was like, I just know myself. And good thing we're talking about mental health. Yeah. I'm that guy who I quietly sit around, I observe. Some people probably think I'm stuck up or standoffish. But I just like to have genuine relationships. Yeah. And it's like, I just kind of watch. And when I don't feel a person,
You don't feel good.
I just sit quietly.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not good at the kissing the ass. And I also know that there are people in this environment that are going to make me snap one day. And I'm like, so I am the quiet guy that will all of a sudden snap, and I will like do something like pick up a chair and beat you until you stop moving. Yeah. And they were like, what happened to Rick Younger? Yeah. And I was like having enough foresight to be like, that's where this is going.
Yeah. And I can't be around it.
Right. So I started producing. Yeah. I produced my own stuff. Sold Out Comedy was a show that it was 6 of us. Me, Mike Yard, Dean Edwards, Mark Theobald, Wally Collins, and Leanne Lord.
Yeah.
And our story basically was we started around when Def Jam came out.
Yeah.
But we weren't your stereotypical Def Jam act. So we basically worked both sides, black and white. And just so Sold Out Comedy was kind of like the story of that experience. So what it consisted of was the six of us doing stand-up. Then after all six of us did our stand-up, we would tell stories of coming up in that environment. And then when we all finished our stories, we would all be on stage, and then we would take questions and answers. We do Q&A.
So you really produced like, and that's the thing too. Like when you say you're independent, because when I look at you as an artist, I'm like, yeah, I like Rick not just because of what he does on stage, but holistically as an art, like you do things that feel right. Yeah, so it's holistic. It's like it's not just hey we're doing stand up, which is cool, but it's like no, we're more than stand up comedian. Like here's stand up, here's we can tell stories.
Yeah, it's like I always ask myself if I could do anything I wanted, what would it be?
Do? Yeah, what would it be?
And then once I think of it, I'm like, now why am I not doing it? And it's like I don't let a network determine whether I'm going to do something. So like when I decided that I wanted to create the Rick Younger Show, I was like, what if I had my own TV show, what would it be? I was like, I could imagine it would be like, I definitely want to bring my music in. Definitely want to do comedy and sketch and improv.
Yeah.
And I kind of think of like the Rick Younger Show as kind of like a hybrid of Flip Wilson and the Larry Sanders Show. Kind of like this late night host who's so full of himself, so everything is about him. So like when I do the Rick Younger Show, I have my own band, and I don't have musical guests. I sing with the band.
Yeah.
It's
like, sing the clip.
You might be able to get on there with me, but I have the Ricky wheel. It's a wheel that we spin. Whatever it lands on, we have to do. So that's where the improv comes in. Yeah. And then I have like I sometimes have celebrity interviews, but what I'll do is I have my friends who are sketch, improv people, and stand-ups impersonate. So Dean Edwards has been on as Denzel Washington. Sarah Schaefer has been on as Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah. Allison Becker has been on as Penelope Cruz. That's great. So on and so forth. And so I do the show.
I've been kind of going through this thing, like over the past, I guess, like year of looking at my worth and what perceived worth is, and looking at like what I feel that I do versus what the industry wants, and kind of seeing like, okay, you guys want this and I'd have to do this in order to get that, but what is that thing? Because it's like, oh, all these things don't matter, because I look at my life and my happiness and my catalog and all those things, like I want to be able to look back and be like, man, I did those things the way I wanted to do them. Well, I gave platforms out, and I feel good about that.
For me, it's like I said, I try not to let a network determine what I'm doing, and I also don't let what other people who do what I do determine
what you do.
If I am that. Like I'm a comedian, and like even though some people like might think, oh, I think of Rick as an actor, or I think of Rick as a singer. I'm like, I know that all of the things that I have done
comedy.
Comes from comedy. Yeah. It's like the acting work comes because someone saw me in a stand-up comedy club and decided they wanted to be my agent. From doing that, I got more and bigger acting work.
You're like the only person that has like one of those the second person to have like a Discover story. Yeah. Because everybody else is like, you have to go find it, or you have to be like on Instagram or whatever. But to be like, you did something on stage, and that agent was like, you got it.
And the thing is that it's I never seem to be in the place when people want to give out development deals. I never seem to be in the place when people want to send people to Montreal. Yeah. It's like years ago I did a few auditions for Montreal, and I didn't get it then, and then I guess I aged out because they stopped asking me to come. Yeah. But one of the things that always. But it also gives me the freedom to be able to talk about these things, because everything I got has nothing to do with those people giving it to me.
Like when you got the with Mean Girls, Mean Girls on Broadway, when you got that, it was something I saw, and I was just like, it felt like justice. You know what I mean?
It's just funny because we actually have a song. It's now called Fearless, but it was called Justice in the show. So when you say that, the song started playing in my head. Justice, whoa. It's like,
but that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, you as an artist, a performer, it's like, yeah, that was for him. That is Rick's. You know what I mean? Like, there could have been anything that, like, you can do anything. Like, when I see in commercials, Rick.
Yeah.
But then when I see that, I'm like, fuck, they got it right.
yeah. Well, you know, it's funny because, I mean, who doesn't grow up and say, I want to be on Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
You know, so that's always kind of like a dream, especially when you can do a lot of different things like I can do.
Yeah.
And then there was a period of time where I was going, the mid to late 90s, where I was being submitted for sketch type things and advanced to callbacks and things like that for those types of shows. But somehow I never got into the SNL mix. You know, I know that there's certain places you probably, if you go to Groundlings or UCB or whatever, you're probably in a better, in those, I just never got into those things and places. And so after a while, you kind of figure like, well, I guess that's a dream that won't happen. Yeah. But I've had other dreams. Like I've said I wanted to be in Rent, and I got into Rent. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know I wanted to be in Mean Girls, but if you would have asked me, I'd have been like, yeah, I'll do that.
Do it.
You know, but it's kind of funny that it's like, so my boss is now Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
The guy who created Saturday Night Live.
Nuts.
So it's like, not to say that he's going to take me out of Mean Girls, which he probably won't. I mean, I'm old, you know. It's like, they don't see, you know. But you know, it's like it's just kind of interesting that, you know, your path is your path, and you still wind up getting in front of the same people. And it's like, it seems like once you have the approval of certain people, it changes other people's perception. It's like, you know, they're like, you know, the way I get treated now, that, you know, they're like, oh, so Tina Fey thinks you're talented enough to put in her show, then you must be talented. Yeah. You know,
that's what the credits should mean, right? Usually.
But I went into the audition simply because I'd gone in for Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt a couple of times and didn't get the part. I was like, here's a chance to be in front of her one more time. And maybe she'll give a brother a part in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I mean, I hadn't auditioned for musical theater in so long. So I was like, I just want to have a good showing. Yeah. So that, you know, maybe I'll start going out for more musical theater. I know that there was talk, my agent talked about submitting me for Hamilton and stuff like that. So I was like, well, this is good practice for when maybe I'll get a Hamilton audition, you know, and then things work out the way they're supposed to work out. And here I am. And we're starting our second year on Broadway.
It's like, just to hear it. Because I feel I have this idea of like every time I perform, it's a performance. Yeah. You know, like I never really liked doing open mics because I felt like we're all performing for each other, but you guys aren't like appreciating the performance and whatever. So I just like disassociated myself from that. So then when I just started doing shows, I would love it because I'm like, oh, I'm performing for the audience. Right. Comics, we can laugh and enjoy it too, but like I'm giving a performance.
And that's really what what we do is really for the people, you know. That's why I say about that whole thing of worrying about what other comics think. Yeah, I've never been on a list ever. You know, if I've ever been on a list, it's, you know what I say, comics to watch. I must be on the comics to turn your back on and not watch when he walks up on the stage. Because for some reason, I've just never been on it. But I also don't operate in those worlds. Yeah. You know, because there's a lot of, you know, who you know and who, you know, who's hot is within those circles and stuff like that.
But did you want that, though?
I mean, I think we all kind of want it a little bit. You want people to look at you and say, nah, yeah, that guy is nice, you know. Yeah. You know, but it's like what I get is people, you know, like, you know, audience members, or when I do my low budget morning show out of my kitchen. I go into my kitchen, I make breakfast, and I turn on Periscope,
IG,
Instagram, and Facebook Live, and it's like my chance to connect. Yeah. And the people who leave me messages about how, you know, I inspire them or whatever. And I'm not trying to inspire them. I'm trying to make breakfast, and I'm just flowing.
I'm trying to make breakfast.
I mean, but I think it's also, if you are what you are, And like I feel like there's a difference between gifts and talents.
Yeah.
And your talents usually make way for you to use your gift. So my talents are I can sing, I can act, I'm funny. But my gift is what I give back to the world. And for me, it's the way I touch people, the way I inspire people. So through those talents, I'm able to do that. And when people reach out and tell me that I inspire them, that's validation of that. Yeah. And it's like, to those people, it doesn't matter if I've ever been on Saturday Night Live or if I've ever been on Comedy Central, if I ever went to this festival or that, you know, when they decide that you're their favorite comedian, they don't, you know, they're not sitting up there saying, they're like, look, I saw you, you were funny, or I saw you and you touched me in some way. And so that's really who we do it for.
Yeah. It's like I had to like one of the things about like this whole like the mental health thing is that like I was like going out of my mind trying to like I always put the people first, right? And it's even just with pledging, even with you know, my mom is from the projects and like my dad's from Jamaica, so there's like all these different levels of like black culture stuff that's in me, and also knowing like the kind of the racism that exists in the world and in the industry. And also in the sense of like now the industry is going to this wave of like, okay, yeah, we want to be super inclusive and diverse. It's like, yeah, but there's still like a lot of ageism that's happening. There's still a lot of in comedy, I think it's like they're like, oh, we've seen all the black males. You have to be black male in something else. You know what I mean? I feel like and it's like, can you just look at me as Mike Brown? Can you look at Rick? You know what I mean?
The thing is that what people are unable to acknowledge or even realize. First of all, white people with your privilege, there are blind spots that you're going to have. And as long as you're not willing to listen to people trying to point out those blind spots, you're never really going to change. Yeah. So if you're an industry person who feels that I've seen all the black people or I've seen all the black guys, it's nothing that anyone can tell you about, hey, you know why that's problematic, what you just said. You know, and it's also, people don't realize that you guys, when you see a black guy, you don't judge him in the same way when you're judging a white guy or when you're judging other people. And it's like, that's all coming from a place of racial bias and all this other things. And it's like, if I can't point out to you that there's a reason why I've actually been told, hey, Rick, you're really good, but it's not a lot of good black guys who can do that subtle type of humor that you get, that you do when you book these commercials. Yeah. I call it Black Bob Newhart, you know, and it's like, and it's like, you know, like I've had directors say to me, I use you as much as I can because it's not a lot of good black guys and you're one of the good ones. And I'm like,
that's such a weird.
I'm like, no, I said, y'all just don't know where to go. Like, y'all ain't going. Y'all definitely not going to go over to Mocha on Monday night. Oh, no. Because most of us ain't going. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's like, I mean, some of the most talented comedians I've ever seen were the ones that I've seen when I was working. Because I started out in the Def Jam world. You know, that was pretty much where you could get on.
When you were doing that, how was that for you though? Like, was that like? Because like I'm imagining,
it's almost like when it's almost like you do what you do because you don't know that there's a difference. Yeah. Like I started doing stand up. I hadn't planned on being a stand up. I went to do my first stand up open mic because one of my buddies from college really wanted to do stand up because he saw Def Jam and like blew his mind. Wow. And he was like, you should come with me. I thought he just wanted me to support him. He's like, no, man, you make people laugh. You should get on stage. And I was like, all right, I'll go. Yeah. And I got there and it's kind of like, that voice and that moment where the light shines down, it was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. You know, and it's like, so where you could get on was you could get on at the black rooms. You didn't even realize the hassle you were going to get when you tried to go to the mainstream rooms until you went and tried it. You're like, what? Like
you gotta wait, you gotta hang around. It's like
walk in there and the first thing they say, I got enough Def Jam acts. I was like, I haven't even opened my mouth yet. Yeah. You know? Yeah. It's like
they see black, they know Def Jam.
Right. And the thing is that I don't even trust you if you can't tell your black people apart.
Oh man.
You know? It's like, man. Like, I mean, because, as black folks, like, when you see brother dressed a certain way, you're like, okay, I can imagine. I can probably figure out what kind of music he likes, but some white folks just see black. You could be a black guy in a suit, or you can be a black guy in a sweatsuit, and you the same dudes.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like,
type, yeah.
But yeah, so that's where I went. The funny thing about it is that when I first started doing stand up, I was still in college, and I was in the Maryland Gospel Choir.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm playing. So I'm playing around DC.
Yeah.
Singing Jesus is real, and and I'm singing the solo, so I can't even duck and say just be a part of the choir and hide out. It was like, so I was like very aware of, dang, I'm doing comedy in the same place that I'm singing gospel, so I was like, well, I can't curse because people gonna be like, that's the same guy that was singing Jesus is real on Sunday. Yeah. So that was another thing that I put on myself. So I was like, I'm not gonna curse. Which is cool, because if you grow up in church, even if you curse, you know when and where to curse. Yeah. So you usually can control your ability to curse.
Not in public.
Because you like, all right, I'm gonna shut up right now because my grandmother's listening. But
deference again.
Right. So I started out in the Def Jam rooms, but not cursing. So I knew that was an obstacle. Yeah. But what I decided was, I'm going to have enough energy that people don't realize I'm not cursing. So I'm like, even though I'm not raw with my words, I got to be raw with my energy. Yeah. So I was way more animated than I am now. Now, I can get animated when I do act outs and stuff like that, but like I'm way more calm on stage than I used to be. I used to be just, very energetic and big. I didn't give you enough time to realize I wasn't cursing. So that's kind of how I started at first. And I just kind of did that enough to realize that, okay, I can do this. Okay. But also being in that realm, I was always kind of like different, and different in the sense that people would always say to me that I was different. Like, you made me laugh. I didn't think I would laugh because you dressed real nice, or, you didn't curse. I didn't think I was going to laugh, or, and so it was always kind of like, you're funny and you're good, but you're different. But it gave me the belief and knowledge that I could make everybody laugh. So I was like, okay, now I'm gonna start trying to get in at the mainstream clubs, and so that's when I started to branch out. But I always, I started there, and then what I would always do, no matter how much I did the mainstream, I would always go to black rooms to make sure what I was saying in the other rooms were, until I got to a point where I knew funny enough where I was like,
this goes everywhere.
I don't have to go all over the place to do it.
I think about that like a lot. Just there's like a few things that you brought up. Just even like with religion and having faith, and then being in the industry, and like being like, man, some of this stuff doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I can't knowingly be around certain shit, and it's cool if that's what you want to do.
Well, and I guess that's another thing that has made me independent, is that just being in control of the environments I'm in. Yeah. Because I don't even know what it is about me. There's certain people have a perception of me that I can't control, and it's like, so sometimes people don't bring certain things around me because they think I'm going to have a problem with it, and I'm like the most non-judgmental person you ever meet.
Just not your thing. It's like
people assume I'm like it's funny because I started out with Donnell Rawlins, Red Grant, Joe Claire, and Dominique. We all were like in DC. We all started around the same time. We even had the same manager at one point, and I was the only one out of the crew that didn't smoke weed. And it was like
sounds about right.
I don't think it's a problem saying that out loud. I don't think.
I know, like, go get back.
Yeah. Matter of fact, he called me like 2 Saturdays ago out of the blue because he was just like, I don't know why he the old days came up in his mind. I mean, me and Donnell used to like roll all the time. It's like when I first started staying in New York, I used to sleep on his couch. Him and Royale lived together, and then Royale went to L.A., and then Brooklyn Mike. So, but I used to roll and hang. I mean, one time Donnell had my car and got it towed. That's how tight we rolled. But yeah, I remember like the first time though that we went on the road, and he's like, he wanted to smoke weed, and he's trying to figure out how to bring it up to me, like, I roll the window down. I was like, you're not gonna roll the window down. I said, I don't smoke it myself, but I grew up like my uncles, like, my uncles. I mean, my Uncle Tony might still smoke weed. He's like 70. He's like, and it's like, so that was the smell I grew up around. I think it smells delicious, but I'm like, I got asthma. You know, you hear me coughing? I'm like, maybe I would do it if I didn't think it would make me cough and choke and die.
You're singing for a living. You can't
right. So,
come on, man.
But yeah, so I'm like, and I also had a 2 vice theory, which I employed through college and the rest of my life. I believe you should have 2 vices. Leave it at that. Some people try to do too many vices, and it's detrimental.
Right. That's the key.
And here's the thing: you can have whatever 2 you want. But if you decide to switch to another one, that means you got to drop.
Get rid of one.
So, for example, my vices were drinking and fornicating. So I'm like, that meant like, it also meant I couldn't lie, I couldn't cheat and steal, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So like, if I was never one to tell lies to try to hook up with women.
Exactly.
You know, because that would have been stepping into another vice, or it means I couldn't have a drink.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, so I'm like, so with my 2 vices, I do my thing or did my thing or wwhatever. But it was like, I just was like, I can't do all of them. It's like I have one of my buddies. It's like, I remember we were in one of those black gospel stage plays together, and I mean, this brother, he was like, it was hookers, it was dice. He was like, I mean, craps. I mean, it's like he get paid and he get to be on the back of the bus giving his money away, rolling craps. I was like, 2 vices, man. Pick 2. It's like,
oh, that is such a key. That's such like that is.
And since it was a black gospel stage play, I won't say any names.
Don't say it. Mama, I got a vice.
Like, Mama, I done smoked the weed.
That 2 vices is such a. I'm
telling you, if you don't learn anything from this podcast, just pick 2.
2 vices.
Yeah.
I've been flirting with that because I used to like, now that I'm in this relationship and I've been with her for 3 years, right? Before I was with her, I would never have great relationships because for me it was always drinking and sex.
Yeah.
Those were my things. And it's like, this is what I do. I always keep it real, but I'm doing this, I'm doing that.
Right,
and then I felt like, for women who knew me, they were like, oh yeah, Mike, you be drinking a lot and you just be fucking like, and you can't take him seriously.
Sometimes at the same time.
Hey, what's up?
He holding the bottle and smacking ass.
Mama, I got a vice. You know,
Mama, I done smacked the ass.
I'm chilling, you know?
Because you got to always say your mama, so you got to, Mama!
But that's the thing now where it's like I realized I started smoking weed a little bit like on weekends, and I was like, okay, this is just gonna be my vice, my weekend vice. And then like I'll play video games too, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, those are my 2. Those are my 2. Everything else, I'm so boring.
Yeah.
But other than those 2 things, it's like, it's just work, family, you know what I mean? It's just like comedy, family, art, and all that. But those are my 2 like things, and they ground me in such a way. And it feels weird because when I'm with most of the comics or whatever, sometimes they're just like going around like, hey, you could do what you want to do. Right. And then I get looked at in the same way. We're like, I don't know if Mike is, oh, you smoke? I'm like, yeah, I just don't like do it around people.
Right, yeah.
I'm doing it with you. It's fine. You can do it around me. I'm cool.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm the police. I'm just chilling. Like I'm just. And also the other thing you were saying about like the performative thing of like, I guess like being on of how you used to have a lot of energy at first in the black rooms, and then you're like, nah, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I felt like this as a black person who grew up around other black people, right? I knew what blackness is, and you know what I mean? Like, I'm comfortable with my black, but then when I got around white people, I got really like, oh, I don't know what's happening.
Right,
you know what I mean? And then I would like try to act a certain way because I'm like, I don't want to mess this up for anybody.
Right.
And I would feel that way sometimes when we're doing stand-up or being this like comedy industry. I'm like, okay, I don't want to ruffle any feathers or whatever. And then now I'm in this point where I'm like, oh, I'm really me around everybody now.
Yeah.
And it's so comfortable, but it's also like a scary thing to get to.
Throughout doing comedy throughout the years, I've just watched different people, and I early on working with Paul Mooney, and it was like I just watched him, and I was like, man, that guy says the same thing no matter who is in the room.
Yeah.
Because I remember I used to try to change up, kind of like I would code switch for a black audience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I had to. After seeing him, I was like, I'm gonna stop. It's like I don't have to talk like I didn't go to college just because it's to make every black person in the room feel comfortable. Because guess what? A lot of them went to college too.
Yeah.
And just like, and every white person that comes to the show didn't go to college.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we live in a world where, left to our own devices, we will all be victims of racism. I think of racism as a disease in the sense that we all can suffer from it. Now, black folks can be racist because of the power thing, but we all suffer from it.
That's a good call.
It's like that whole idea that the way we as black people will judge black people. I have a bit in my act where I talk about, how because of television, film, and media, when I see a black guy walking down the street, I'm just as afraid as white folks are.
Yeah.
And I have to consciously make myself say, hey, why am I afraid? But I'm looking at the guy walking towards me like, oh man, he gonna rob me. He's looking at me like, oh man, he gonna rob me. And it's like, we have to make ourselves not do that.
Yeah.
Which also is like when white people say I don't have a racist bone in my body. I'm like, you lying, because I got a racist bone in my body.
Yeah.
And left to our own devices, we're gonna always default to let me play it safe around black people.
Yeah.
Let me let me switch this bag, hold it tight when this brother gets up here. And it's like he looking at you like holding his bag. And it's like we just have
It's also weird to me because I'm always, other than being like scared sometimes I'm more loving.
Yeah, well,
it's like, hey man, like I just feel that comfort when I see.
I think the ultimate,
it's a weird thing
ultimate, which I don't is the ultimate. The ultimate is being able to just be as a black person.
Yeah,
where it's like I don't have to worry about what I do having an effect on every other black person that comes after me. Like I don't have to be respectable in order to be, I'm like, I don't care.
You don't want to ruin it for all the black people.
It's like,
it's just like,
but we all, as black people, we all have it. Like when we hear the news and we hear something happen, we're like, oh, please don't let them be black. Please don't let them be black.
Yeah.
Because we know that one white privilege is the privilege to be an individual. Yeah. We don't have that privilege. It's like, so I'm like, yo, Mike, don't go out here doing dumb stuff because, they're going to arrest me. It's like, because, so.
It's weird because it's like I've been like I'm trying to think of the thing that like the only thing that would like connect us all, I feel, is it's something I'm trying to like talk about on stages, but like we're all Americans in a way, right? But you can't look. American doesn't really have a look though.
Right.
Like like if you go to Korea and you're like, oh, everyone here is Korean, or if you go to maybe England. You can hear an accent and be like, oh, they're English. But for America, we don't have a thing that's like visible or audio, maybe the way we speak, the way we use English. Yeah. But our English is so different between the way we speak it and way well-to-do rich white folks speak English. It's different. So there's nothing that like binds us other than geography.
Yeah.
And that's like it's like, well, at least we have that. Right? Can we be equal there?
That's why I'm always wary of people who are way too proud of where they're from.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, why are you excited about where your parents had sex? Because the point is, what you are you didn't grow out of the ground. So the actual dirt that we grew up on is not what makes us who we are.
Yeah.
So if my parents would have had sex in Germany and I was born there, guess what? I would have been German.
Yeah.
So it's like,
German.
When people are way too proud about I'm from here or I'm, even you can narrow it down to even cities and stuff. I'm like, calm down. It's like,
it's like, oh man, there's two things to it because I feel the same way, and then the other side is like, but also I do
know or understand how the geography can affect that person. Like if you're like, let's say from Baltimore, you might
Which
say,
I am.
right? You might say like do a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just something like, hey, that's just how we spoke.
Right.
It's not like a thing that's like personality changing,
Yeah.
but there might be personality changing things if like you're from the area and you grew up with go-go and you hear like certain live music and you're
I know that
way.
The Wire gave me retroactive street cred when that came out. When people found out I was from Baltimore. And the thing that's so crazy about it is that the first season of The Wire took place like in the neighborhoods that I grew up in, as far as like where my church was and where my grandparents lived. And but the thing is that people got to realize that just like there's so many different types of ways to be black.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many different types of ways to be an American. There's so many different types of ways to be a Baltimorean, you know?
Yes.
So it's like, you know, you can be, even in the roughest neighborhood, there's the guy who can't fight.
Yeah.
So people act like they tough because they're from a certain area. It's like, well, did you get your ass kicked all the time? So being from the South Bronx doesn't matter if you can't use the South Bronx as like to say I'm tough if you the guy that never want to fight there.
Yeah.
You know?
You can say, I know how to avoid a lot of fights.
You know, I guess you say, look, hey, I took a lot of ass whippings. It makes me real tough.
Yeah, I was with my boy Dylan, and we were with like one of his friends, and she was like, "Oh, you grew up in Harlem? You don't seem like a Harlem guy." And I'm like, "What's a Harlem guy to you?" Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, well, what is that? Like, yeah, I am. That does not define me. Like, one thing does not define me.
Yeah.
And I think as black people, for so long, it's like you're defined as black, but defining someone as black, there's so many definitions of like what that means. You know, who'd you grow up around?
Right.
Well, where were your parents at? Are you from like African descent or West Indian descent or this or that or whatever?
Well, you know, within our culture, we have so many different things. Like, you know, you and I are in fraternities.
Yeah.
But then
that's
a whole different world. Then you got like the Jack and Jills and the Boulay and Lynx and all this other stuff. And it's like, these are also things that because a lot of people think of blackness as one. People outside of blackness don't even realize the difference. Like I said, when they see the suit or the sweatsuit, it's the same guy, and it's like, no, it's way different.
It's so,
you know, there's going to a HBCU or a PWI. You know, it's like it's so many. It's like it's so many ways to be black.
Now, in talking about just like kind of shift. I did want to talk about like fatherhood and like how. It's funny, like how do you deal with it?
What I do is I get up in the morning, I put them on a bus, one on the buses and the other to daycare, and I have time to myself for a while. It's like you love your kids, but you need some time to be a person and be yourself and do your own things. It's like,
and as a performer,
right?
It's like there's so many things going on. That's what I'm like. It's like talk about that, man.
Well, you know, it's like, what I like. You know, like
keep your wits about
I know so many people
man.
who. It always interests me when people like commend me for doing it. You did it, man. You're doing it. Your father, you this, that. And it's like the same things that a lot of people use as excuses for not doing what I do. Like, yeah, you know, I had kids, so I didn't, you know, I mean, I waited to have kids, but also it's like sometimes you do the best by your kids by making sure you're happy, you know, which that also, you know, it's like, if you are going into a job that's destroying your spirit and soul, which makes you come home and be an asshole and distant with your kids and your family, then it's like you didn't pursue that other thing for naught. You know, when it's like you might as well have gone ahead and maybe y'all had a few years where you struggled a little bit financially, but you came home as a happy and present parent. Yeah. And so, like, I mean, I didn't have my first kid till I was 40, and by then I was already like doing like a little bit of stuff. Yeah. But once you have a kid, now you're like, well, that same money I was making now has to feed an extra person. So and you just told me that. Yeah, I just had a moment after my son was born where I was like, you know what? I just don't think God's gonna allow me to let him starve. I don't know where all the money's going to come from. I mean, because, I do the type of thing where there's no guarantee. Like right now is the most consistent I've worked, because I'm on Broadway and I get paid every week. But it's like, I still always had, it's just that, and it's like, the thing is that the whole security of a job, it's an illusion. It's like lady I'm seeing right now, is she had a nice job, and then there were layoffs, and so it's like this job that seemed so secure just wasn't there anymore, and you move on, you continue, but it's like it just creates the illusion of security because you think, okay,
they're going to be around.
Yeah, they're going to be around, but that's not taken into consideration that all of a sudden there could be a culture change and you could be gone. And then they'll give you a little bit of severance, but they don't really care
about your life. Like that's it.
All by the same token, you could do a job that just destroys you, stresses you out, gives you a heart attack. And guess what? Before your obituaries in the newspaper, there's going to be another thing in the newspaper, which is your job. In the classified section, and it's like all of those things. There's no security, so you should not do things based on security. You should do it because it fulfills you in some way. And I know it's hard for some people to wrap their mind around that because maybe you come from generations of people trust me, to be an artist, to become an adult and be an artist, you have to fight through so much that's trying to make you not be an artist.
When was the shift for you? When you were like, all right, this is going to work out. Was it the sun or like when did you get like that hit of like, okay, I'm doing it. Fuck that. I'm going for it.
Well, that was well before. I
was 23, like starting it?
Man, it was like, I knew as a kid that like, I'm not into award shows. Yeah. They just don't excite me.
Yeah.
And it started when I was young because I would watch award shows and I had this feeling like, those were my people. Like they're just doing something.
They're just people doing the thing.
They're doing the thing that I'm going to eventually do. Yeah. So it was like I never looked at them as like, oh my goodness, that person. Yeah, like right now, like I see Tina Fey like all the time, and I don't have this feeling of because I always felt like this is where I belong.
Those are peers, but you respect the work. To be
right.
Like, wow,
like,
you've done so much.
She's someone who does what I do, who's more successful at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, before that I worked. Before that, I wrote for Tracy Morgan. It's like, it was always just a thing of, plus knowing Tracy all the years around the club, but just kind of like,
these are people, they're real.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just like, they do what I do. And there are just levels and there's things that I got to do to reach certain levels. But so I always kind of knew that that's the direction I was going.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing going on with me was I was a smart kid. And in the black family, smart kid is like you, the great black hope.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like you're not gonna waste that brain on singing and dancing or being an actor.
Go to college,
going
get a job.
College, right? Everything about me that pointed to me being great at what I do now. Mm-hmm. The people around me could always find some type of honorable, respectable job that I was supposed to do. Oh, Ricky is such a good speaker. He should be a lawyer,
Oh, man, I was so
you're so smart. Are you interested in being a doctor? I was like, no, and it's like totally disregarding the amount of intelligence it takes to do what we do.
Yeah.
And so I always kind of like went along with like, yeah, okay. All right, because school was easy. Mm-hmm. Then it was like.
You didn't love it.
Around high school. Excuse me. Bless. Around high school, now it's time to, okay, what are you going to do after high school? Mm-hmm. I was trying to convince my parents to let me go into the Air Force because my brother had already gone into the Air Force. Yeah. I was like, I could, make some money, this, that, and the other thing. Yeah. And, I was like, and I'll save money and go to college. They were like, you're not going to do that. You going to college. So they made me go to college, and I was like, all right. Mm-hmm. But even though I was in college for 6.5 years because I was like always changing majors.
Yeah.
Didn't like going to class. I had a ball in college, but I was like, I just didn't.
And
I don't.
and you crossing the play. Come on,
Right,
man.
it's like there was nothing.
Come on, man.
College lets you free.
on, man, yeah.
So without someone making me go to class and do homework,
Same shit.
So,
I'm
yeah.
not going. I'm here.
so I was like, I was in the gospel choir. I excelled at everything where I had a chance to sing or perform,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead when I get out of college. I'm gonna really start pursuing music.
Yeah.
And right before I graduated is when stand up fell in my lap.
Wow.
And it was like the freedom of being on stage by yourself and creating was like, I'm more suited to that than going into studios with people trying to tell me how to sing. Because coming from that gospel background, coming from the R&B soul background, I'm into singing. I'll close my eyes and sing a song different every time I sing it based on how I feel.
Yeah.
So it was like, I didn't like that lack of control. And so I was like, I'll do stand up. And all the people that I admired, from stand up, they started to write, produce, direct, and all that other stuff. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Because when I went to college, if you'd asked me what I wanted to be, I said I want to write, produce, and direct for television and film.
Yeah.
So got out of college and I started within less than 2 years of graduating from college, I quit my job. And
was there
full-time.
was there a thing like when you quit, were you like, okay, it's time to quit, or were you just like, man,
I mean, I don't like going to work. It's like I work hard at this, but I do not like people telling me what to do. Mm-hmm. I just don't like that so-called organized stuff. Yeah. So like I had a job and I spent the last 3 hours at work trying not to do work. I take the latest lunch as possible and then come back for 3 hours and rearrange my desk. All right, this pencil needs to go over here now. All right, let me move it over here. And so I was starting to do enough stand-up where I was like not going to work to go out of town.
Okay, yeah. Do a gig out
and I was
here,
like, if I keep calling, they're gonna fire me. I was like, all right, well, I'll quit. And so 1994. I haven't had a day job since 1994.
That is so. It's like I've just done my last 3 years of just living off comedy.
Yeah.
Right. Of just comedy income and entertainment income. And like the first year was really hard.
Yeah.
That second year was a little easier.
Yeah.
This year might prove to be like the easiest one.
Yeah,
but it's still like a thing of like budgeting and also knowing like that kind of like old school mentality, like, you eat what you hunt. So you gotta work.
You got that, and it's also there's just the understanding that your next job you don't necessarily see.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Like
it's faith. It's all faith.
I'm telling you,
faith.
like, and we can use Mean Girls as another example.
Yeah,
I went to Mean Girls. I had one audition, and so one morning I went in and I did this audition. By the end of the night, I had the gig. Wow. And so it's like
one audition.
Off of one audition, which also the thing about it was that it made me afraid that I was not going to be there for the whole thing. I thought that I was just holding a spot.
Yeah. And
it wasn't until this Sunday we were hanging out because we had 4 people leave the show and we're about to start the second year. Mm-hmm. And I happened to be hanging out. We had a little party, and I'm hanging out with one of the members of the creative team, our lyricist, and we got to talking about my character because one of the parents of one of the guys that's leaving came over was just saying how much she enjoyed my character, and I was like, adults really like my character because I kind of, I speak for them, I speak for them, and it's just, and so we got into me talking about the character, and I was like, I'm very aware of little things about him. I was like, he's a black principal at a culturally diverse school in the suburbs of Chicago. It's like he is very aware of I'm a black guy, and I know what the usual thought of who I am is, and how I'm different in their eyes. I'm presenting a different black person than they're used to, but I also have to be very aware of how I interact with them. These are all things that are, and when I perform it, you're not thinking about the fact that I've thought about those things, but those are the things that make a difference. And she was saying to me, she's like, yeah, you came in the room and it was just like,
there it is.
It was like we saw it, and it was like, and she's like, and I'm gonna tell you, she's like, right now we're trying to cast the national tour, and we're having a hard time finding someone to do your part.
Wow.
And it's like, sometimes the gig that's next, you have no idea that it's coming. There's no way you can even prepare for it except for doing what you've always done, knowing that all that you've done leading up to this has prepared you for that. And we're in it just takes one type of field. It's like the people that I'm interacting with now because of this one gig is way different than the people I was interacting with the day before I booked this gig.
Wow.
It's like, and even before that, when I was rolling with Tracy, it was like that was preparation for the comfort that I felt when I went in the room knowing that Tina was going to be in there.
Yeah.
It's like I've been around this guy who, obviously knows her.
Love. Yeah.
And he's, he's told me a little bit about her.
Yeah.
I kind of, and I'm like, I'm just like, okay. I'm like, I've been around people on this level.
Does that, I guess the different circles now, does that like bother you or anything in any way? Not bother you, but like, is it, I feel like I'm already starting to see like some of my circles change just because I've gotten more focused on like really going after the things I want to do. And it feels great because I'm like, oh, I'm so unapologetically me all the time.
Right.
But then it's also like, man, the other circles I was in, I was unapologetically me there, but I wasn't being successful. Well, like I left you guys personally, but like
I'm a firm believer in the average of 5, and that's you are the average of the 5 people you're closest to. And it's like you can either be around people that pull you up or people that, you don't want to be the top dog. You should strive to always be around people that are going to be pulling you up.
Yeah.
So it's like the thing about it is that real and genuine relationships, they're going to stay.
Yeah.
So like when I talk about my sold out comedy crew, which I named earlier, Mark Theobald, Dean Edwards, Mike Yard, Wally Collins, and Leanne Lord. As with more success, you just reach a point where you're not going to work together anymore.
Yeah.
If all 5 or all 6 of you are headliners,
then you
can't all be on the show because somebody people like I'm not taking a pay cut just so we can hang.
Yeah. We can hang though. If you want to hang, we can.
So
hang.
it's like those. Like the other about a week ago, Mark came to see the show.
Yeah.
It's like. When Last OG was shooting in my neighborhood, I went and I hung down on the set. It's like we'll get our opportunities to hang. Sometimes I'll go down to the Village and catch up with Dean and Mike, and it's just like every once in a while we talk about possibly getting the band back together and doing another sold out show. But we don't have to do that either. And it's like you just like
it's like maybe it's fun. Like
right, you just realize that you are going if you continue on, you're going to naturally be in the circles you're supposed to be for however long. And like I just read a couple days ago about how Adam McKay and Will Ferrell are dissolving their partnership, and it's from all accounts it's an amicable thing. It's like we've just kind of started doing our own things to the point where it's like we don't have the time to do our together things. And like Key and Peele, it's like they're rejoicing for one another, but it's like, hey, it's time for us to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like you just continue to move on, man. It's like I don't know. I've just had one of those years anyway. Me and my wife have separated, going through a divorce.
Yeah.
Now we're she's dating, I'm dating.
Yeah.
It's like our
it's a whole new world.
Our lives are changing, and we're okay with that. We're like we're parenting together. But meanwhile, so like I've had some high highs and some low lows.
Yeah.
Every Thursday, I'm going to see my therapist with glee, you know. But it's like,
Yeah, you got to get that shit out.
But you just realize that, hey, these are the things that are a part of life.
Yeah.
And how I look at it, because like on top of, like I said, with me and my marriage, my new lady who's got laid off, and I found out my brother has a degenerative brain disease. You know, it's like
there's a lot.
It's like I always like, and I've had some conversations with some friends, because you find out that there aren't a lot of people who are going to show up.
Oh,
and
yeah, that's all friendship is.
You know, and it's like, and because it always gets me when we have like a celebrity suicide. And someone, then all of the posts, hey, I'm a lighthouse. If you're ever in need, call me. I'll put on a pot of coffee. We'll talk. And I'm like, that's not how people who are calling out for you are going to call out for you. You know what's going to happen? They'll say, hey, Mike, want to hang out?
Yeah.
And if you hang out, they know that I can hang on a little while longer.
Yeah.
Or Mike is really my boy.
Yeah.
And like I've said to my therapist, I'm like, I'm not worried that I'm suicidal, because if I was, this would have been the year, you know? And it's like, but it's like,
that's not an option. You get to the point where you're like, all right, suicide is not an option.
Yeah.
But I got to go through some stuff.
Right. And so for me, I'm like, I'm also, every great story I've ever heard sounds so much like my life right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, as great as what great things are going on for me right now, the greatness that's beyond this is going to be so amazing. But it's like, I've got to go through it, and that's life in a nutshell. It's like, you got to go through it. It's like, I always think about, I've had, you know, being a parent, you have these types of conversations, and I was like, the difference between a lot of mothers versus a lot of fathers. A lot of times fathers are like, all right, you got to go through this. I know this is going to be hard, so let's get through it quickly.
Yeah.
And mothers a lot of times are, you know, are like, want to avoid the pain.
Yeah. You don't want to get
right.
get hurt.
Don't do that. No, let him go. Let him fall. He'll learn. You know.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, obviously
Push him.
it's not always the father or the mother, but usually it's one person, one parent or the other.
Yeah.
You know. And so it's like, that's part of life. It's like, sometimes you got a choice. You can decide to try to avoid the tough stuff, or realize I got to get through it, because when I get through it, the things I'm going to gain from getting through it, and the greatness that's on the other side of it.
Yeah, that is such a not heavy thing, but it's a powerful thing.
Well, you know, it's like I one of the things that had me so interested in being on your podcast was, you know, the mental health aspect, because, you know, as Black people, we're always taught about being strong. Yeah. You know, like, even the fact that we're supposed to not shed a tear, and, you know, like, you know, we can't give the white man the power of knowing what he's done has affected us. Yeah. And it's like, then we turn it back on ourselves. And it's not like, good. You know, like, and like, I had a conversation with my mother. I'm like, we come from a family with a history of mental illness that we never talk about. And like, my mother has an older sister who, when they were growing up, she's like, oh yeah, she used to go and literally go climb into the closet, stay there for a few days. Wow. And then when she came back out, she was like, hey, like nothing ever happened. And one day, when she went to the store with my cousin, and she left, she walked down to the corner, and a few minutes later, my cousin comes back crying. And they're like, what happened? She's like, yeah, my mother got into a car and told me to come back down to the house. So she's gone. No one has seen her. Wow. It's like she could be alive. She could not be alive. The last person who had seen her was my Uncle Junior, who died in 1983. Wow. Wow. And it's like, these are the types of things that are in Black families that we never talk about. And it's like, you know, it'll be a few different people that like got ways, you know, we got ways about them, or like, or
something different, special. You got
like, or like my cousin who used to preach down at the Inner Harbor out of a GQ magazine. So he wasn't a real preacher. He just had a GQ magazine he's preaching. And, and it's like, eventually his mother just decided that, hey, this is my son. Yeah. And us, not letting him come around or not being around him is not helping him. Right. And so she brought him home, and she's like, he can live at my house. He's a grown man. He'll just have to live here, and we'll figure out how to handle this. Yeah. But it's like, these are the things, like I said, that happen in families. It's more than one person doing all kinds of stuff, and we just like, hey, or don't go near him. All right, don't go alone. Don't be alone with such and such a person. It's like, so we gotta break out of that. Like that's why I proudly, like when I do my breakfast show and I'm like, it's Thursday, I'm in the voice of the guy from Black Panther where he goes, it's challenge day. I go, it's therapy day. It's like, it's cool, man. I love therapy, man, because as you can see, I like to talk.
How long you been going?
Well, definitely,
here we go.
Definitely since that separation. I was like, yeah, let's go talk about some of this stuff. So at least it's been well, this time around it's been about 6 months.
Dude, I was going to therapy, man. I was going to therapy in high school, and I've seen like 3-4 different therapists. Yeah. Just like in high school alone, and my issue is even now, like looking for a new therapist was like, first, I felt like they couldn't even understand my base reality. Right. Because one was this like well-to-do white woman in the 90s, and they didn't know nothing about black shit. They knew nothing about nothing. Right. The two latest white dudes who I went to see, one was I was trying to do like I think it was like a E something, like it's like a certain therapy, but you have to like go to him and all this stuff. Yeah. But he like fell asleep twice in two different tickets. I was like, okay, I'm done. And then another guy,
like, I'm dreaming about it.
Yeah. He woke. Oh man, I'll tell you about it. And then the other dude, he was a good dude, but I also saw that he was so happy to see like a black guy, also a comedian. It was like a treat for him, right. And I'm like, no, I'm not performing here. Yeah, this is like it's like, but I so naturally will.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is I guess being married to a white woman, I have no problem talking to white women.
And I'm also in an interracial relationship, and that also has opened my eyes into how other families look and work and operate.
Well, what's so funny is that like I said, there's the breakup and people are seeing it, and it's like we've gone to our corners. Now I'm seeing a sister, she's seeing a white dude. I'm like, it must be real nice going out with all that privilege. You don't never worry when you get stopped. It's like, but a large part of our talking in therapy is basically about the PTSD that all black people have because of being black in America. Yeah. It's like, I should not feel this way when I see a police car. I should not, like when I'm out doing my run, I shouldn't have to intentionly avoid the block with the police precinct. Yes. Some people avoid the block that looks rough. I avoid it's too many police cars down there.
Yeah,
why am I going to run down where there's police? No, I'm not going to do that. And it's like,
it's
so a lot of therapy is just talking about how being black affects the experience that you have. So if you're going to have a white therapist in that situation, it has to be someone who definitely is aware. Basically, they got to be an ally. Is aware that what you guys have gone through is real. It's not just your perception. Because you got a lot of white folks who feel like anytime you talk about equality, you're talking that's a bridge too far. Yeah, and it's like you really think that so. When black people in Minnesota talk about police the same way that black people in Texas talk about police as in Baltimore, so you think we all had a meeting to say, okay, this is the narrative that we're going to push? Yeah. So the possibility that the problem isn't the way that police has been, the fact that policing started with slave catchers, the foundation of policing is like, until y'all want to like bust up the foundation and start it over, it's going to always have that foundation as a part of it. And like what we're saying is not something that we decided to share at a meeting to try to put a mind fuck on you. It's
Yeah,
like, no,
real.
it's real. And start listening and trusting the lived experiences of black people. Stop trying to white-splain it away.
Yeah. That's it. That's where we're gonna end it. I mean, it's just like it's such a good point. It's like, man, when he gets in his vibe, man, you gotta let Rick get it off, man. It's just like, fuck, that's good, man.
You know, people see the sweater. They don't think of brothers,
man.
conscious, but yeah, look at him with his sweater.
They say the same thing with me and my hoodie, and my little Scully. Man, he don't know nothing. Oh, okay, that's cool. I'm fine with it. But yeah, man, thanks for doing it, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, that's it.